Okay, welcome everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order, but I'm going to start with my obligatory comments here. Due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and current public health guidelines for social distancing, I have determined that it's not prudent for the members of the village board or staff to convene in person for tonight's meeting. Therefore, the members of the village board are attending this meeting by video conference. Those same conditions require barring access to the public for in-person attendance. In light of those limitations, the public is invited to attend and listen to the meeting through the Zoom platform or via phone as indicated on the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meeting is being recorded. Amy, if I could ask you to take roll call and then make sure everyone can be heard while you're doing that.
Okay. Trustee Borowski.
Yes, loud and clear.
I heard that. Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Diane, you're here, so I unmuted you.
Just hear it? I'm
There we
here.
go. I heard you
Here.
this time.
Sorry, I'm
Okay.
still eating, so you don't want to watch it.
Oh, I can't see it anyways. Trustee O'Reilly, are you present?
I am present and I can hear.
Excellent. Let's see, Trustee Nora.
I am present and I can hear you.
Excellent. I heard that. Trustee O'Connor.
I'm here. I can hear you.
Excellent. I heard that. And, and Trustee Micho.
I am here and I can hear you.
Excellent.
All right, well, let's,
All present and can hear.
thank you so much for doing that, Amy. Let's do a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Pledge
to the
to the
flag
flag of the United States of America
America.
and to the
And to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
One
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
liberty
and
and
justice.
justice for
for
all.
all.
All right, welcome everyone. I know these meetings via Zoom are getting old. Geez, someday we'll be able to meet back in person, but we're gonna just keep moving along here and work our way through this. The first item on the agenda is the Homeowners Association visitors. George, I think I see you from Martin Woods, George Meschbach. You're muted. Let me unmute you. I can't unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? There you are. Hey, George, do you have anything for us?
You know, actually, I don't. I appreciate being invited to this meeting, and I did reach out to the homeowners and I've talked to my fellow neighbors, and there was no subject matter that came up for this board. So I leave you with that.
No, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. So, and you can stay the duration if you want, or leave at your leisure.
Okay, I'll listen in for a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the second item on the agenda is a raffle license for the Woodlawn Middle School. This is to approve the raffle license and then the waiver of the $25 fee. Are there anyone want to discuss it, or does somebody want to make a motion?
Now I'll move to approve the raffle license application and waiver of the raffle license bond and $25 application fee requirements for Woodlawn Middle School PTO.
Moved by Trustee Borowski, seconded by
Second, Kritzmeyer.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
All right, Trustee Borowski.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
Rita,
Yes.
okay. Yes, okay, there you go. You got your vote.
That's an aye. Okay. All right, and Trustee Micho.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda is the report of the Economic Development Commission from today's meeting this morning. I did not attend the whole meeting, but Jenny, I don't know if you want to start the recap.
Sure. It was kind of a fun meeting today. Just a lot of things are kind of ongoing. We're continuing connections with the ICSC and the Lake County Partners. Next meeting, Ron Lance is going to be there. So if you're interested, please join in on that conversation. The letter that we approved was sent out to banks and lawyers, but there's a request if you know any bankers or attorneys that would be interested in receiving the letter, just please send those addresses or contacts to the to Denise or Dave so they can distribute it. I think the most fun thing was the How'd You Do It program, where we had an interview of Irwin, and it's a potential to continue these to kind of highlight local businesses. It was really well done. I would encourage all of you to, I think it's going to be posted up on the EDC's Google Docs, but also I think to the website potentially. So I would encourage you to go check that out. It was pretty fun. The big thing that I wanted you guys to be, I think Denise sent you all through your email, the work plan the EDC has adopted and their quarterly update. And I wanted to get your feedback on that. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at it, what you think about it, if you had any thoughts about if they're headed in the right direction, you wanted to edit it. So like I said, I'm not sure, it just came out today to you. There was budget at the end of it, and I'd like any feedback if you're ready today, or maybe if you're not, maybe in 2 weeks.
Hey, Jenny, is that the same thing that was in the board packet, or is that something different?
It is similar a little. They made a few changes this morning, and they updated I don't think the budget was on the thing in the board packet that I didn't see. And at the very bottom of the new one that was sent out today, there's some 4 items budgeted in to their work plan.
Yeah, I have not read it yet from today. I don't know if anyone else has.
Okay, well, we can bench it for 2 weeks. I would please take a look at it, and you can either email me directly so I can maybe talk to them if you had any thoughts, so maybe they can edit it before we meet again next in 2 weeks. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I don't think the budget requests are too egregious. I think it's pretty accurate in what they're doing. So just, I would encourage you to do that. And that's end of my report, unless you have any questions.
Well, Trustee O'Reilly unmuted, so I think she has a comment.
I have read it. It was nice to see that it had a reasonable budget in it. I think it totaled $5,000. I assume that's on an annual basis.
Yes.
Is that correct, Jenny?
Yes.
So it's nice that they've come to reality with what they're doing. My only concern with the whole program is that it's such a heavy agenda that I'm concerned. I would be concerned long term that they would be not focusing strongly enough on one thing or another and just doing a scattershot at a lot of things.
I can share that with them. I think a lot of the items on the agenda are not, they're kind of more quarterly, or maybe even semi-annually, like reaching out to the business. They kind of felt that doing a lot of these things too often would just get ignored from a lot of them. But I think actually the current members of the EDC seem pretty gung-ho and active. So I'm optimistic that
I thought it was a great agenda. It just seemed like maybe somebody needed to quit their day job and do the village stuff, because there's so much to it. But if they can do it, more power to them. It's a good program.
Thank you. I'll share that with them.
Erwin, did you hear that? You're here from the EDC.
The Legend of Long Grove is here. I didn't see him.
I see him. He's muted, but let me see if I can unmute him. I guess you'll have to unmute yourself, Erwin. So anyways, nice work. Roger's here too, by the way. I see Roger over here too. So I guess no comments.
Kind of in that context, I was going to say this later in the meeting, is that our next newsletter is going to focus on the businesses that are on the north end of the village. There'll be photos and a brief description of what they do, because most people don't realize that the whole little complex car service place is Long Grove. And so we're gonna focus on that, and then the next one we're gonna focus on Gilmer Road, the two businesses that are on Gilmer.
Great. So maybe I could just add my 2 cents. I think that it was a very fruitful meeting this morning, and the biggest thing is to have communication between the board and the EDC, and any guidance you could give or direction you could give. Anything we should focus on, please let us know along the way and during the year. It would be very helpful for us.
Thanks, Erwin. Any other comments? I guess what I would like to do is make sure everyone reviews it at before the next meeting. And Dave, if you can make sure that maybe that's in the agenda as well, so we can discuss it. And review, because I did not review the copy from today. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. No, Jenny, thank you. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So the next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the feasibility study for the South Gateway TIF redevelopment project area. It was thought that maybe before we do that, if you're okay with that, Ann was kind enough, working with Denise and Dave, to do some analysis of the current TIF we have. And there's some good news there, and they thought that it might be beneficial to walk through some of that before we look at this resolution. Does anyone object to that? If not, Ann, I think you might have the floor to walk us through, and let me know what you would like me to do if there's anything you want me to present.
If you could grab that PDF that got sent out this morning that has some of the annotations on it, that might be helpful.
All right.
7 pages.
Yep.
I mean, I can drive it. I don't think I'm allowed to drive.
Let me, nope, let me find it and I will pull it up. So, is that manager report update number 3? Yeah, I think that's it. There was just a couple of them today. No big deal.
Sure.
Share.
From this morning.
Yes.
Or you can pull up what's in the board packet if that's easier, but.
Nope. Did this work?
That works. Okay. For everybody's viewing pleasure, we might need to do it a little bit bigger, but so
right.
What this is, we've seen different TIF projections in the past, and we've also had the benefit of Denise updating, like getting everything triangulated on the current TIF incremental revenue by parcel, and teeing that up over the last several years, as well as conversations we've had about the, thank you, perfect, that's good, different methodologies that have been used by Lake County over the past years. So page 1 for this is really the tax increment revenues, and this, behind this, are additional things that Denise has done by parcel. So this is building up by parcel. We're not going to go into that detail right now, but it's by parcel and then grouped into these 8 different groups. And you can see the actuals and the forecast, and we tee those up whenever we do get all of the actuals. But behind the actuals and the forecast, it is building up parcel by parcel. You can see the biggest contributor, if you look above the line, that's the latest and greatest coming in. And Denise, keep me honest if there's anything I'm misstepping, and Dave as well. The largest contributor by a long shot is to the TIF is the Sunset Grove Group, the Sunset Grove Business District. A very nice bump this year of $107,000 in incremental tax revenue. So that's really good news. The next largest is not next there, but it's actually the biggest bump this year was Harbor Chase. And Dave, if you want to chime in if people have questions, but that has to do with their estimate of occupancy. And so a big bump there of about $192,000, give or take. The next biggest contributor is the Executive House, which is just, I don't know what's going on. I assume they may have more tenants or because of its surroundings with more business around Sunset, but that has been deemed more valuable, about a 10,000, not quite, increment there. And then a bump up on Archer Lots, and that's based on the sale price, you know, officially selling that, and then where that comes from. And then you can see downtown bumped up quite a bit on a percentage basis, but on an absolute dollar basis, not nearly as big a contributor. So overall, the overall district increment revenue went from 383 to 745. So some really good news there on the increment. Before we go on, any questions on this? Okay. And then you can see then bringing that out through the next years. This is assuming on a parcel by parcel basis that the parcel's value goes up 2% each year. There is no new development assumed in this forecast. It's just assuming that each property value goes up 2%. And so more or less that means the revenue goes up. It means a couple of properties flip from not having any increment to having some. It's kind of minimal, but that's the right way to do it. And as you can see in the life of the TIF, overall, the largest portion, we've got $10 million coming in ahead of us. So good news. The thing has finally turned the corner, I would say. Second page. The second page has to do with the Sunset Grove Business District, which is really a subset of the larger TIF. Breaking it out basically because the bonds that were issued to the public have not just TIF increment revenues pledged to them, but additional tax revenues that are relative to the business district, and that's why this is broken out. So, and the order matters. So to pay those bonds off, principal and interest that is owed, the first pledged revenue is from the business district sales tax. That's that first column. And we're assuming right now that 1% at the top in the blue box, that's the growth that we're assuming going forward is 1% growth on that business district sales tax. Prior to the refinancing of these bonds, we were pledging 60% of that. Now with the new refinancing, 100% of that goes towards the principal and interest on those bonds. So that's why you see the funky change from 2020 to 2021. It's the jump from 60% to 100%. And then the 1% increase every year going through. The second pledged revenue behind there is the Sunset Grove Business District tax increment. This is the same column we just saw on page 1. The third pledged revenues are kind of equal, and that's the 1% local sales tax and the non-home rural infrastructure sales tax. These are only the taxes that are generated by the Sunset Grove Business District, and 60% of those revenues are pledged to these bonds, the payment and principal and interest for these bonds. So altogether, those 4 columns add up to the green column, which is the pledged revenues. Then we go into, well, what do we do with those revenues? The first 2 columns are really the bond proceeds, so it's kind of like a number in there. We're not paying that off all at once. The second is the reserve. The reserve has to be 10% of the outstanding bonds. So when we issued in 2011, 4.45 million, 445,000 had to be held back in reserves. When we refinanced to the tune of 3.6 million, we basically only have to keep 360 on reserves. So we unlocked $85,000 that can be used to then repay. Then what do we have to do? We have to pay principal and interest. Those are the next 2 columns. You can see the big bump in 2020. That's repaying the old bonds to refinance for the new bonds. And then the interest moving forward. So you'll note the interest is going down quite a bit in the future. That's because we really reduced the the coupon rate. It was 7.5%. Now it's a blended of 3.3%. And we extended the payments 2 more years. So as you would know, refinancing any debt, if you extend it out, then that's less per year. So the overall amount we have to pay each year is really that principal plus interest. In the very last year, we can use that reserve to apply to it. So the net of all of that first green column, which are our revenues, and then the reserve coming in to pay off the principal and interest, the excess or deficit really is this second green column. So you can see on the actuals, this has been performing. In other words, we've had excess for the last several years in the pledged revenues for these bonds, and we anticipate having even more excess in the future. Any questions here? Third page. Now we get into the rest of the TIF district beyond the business district. The first column is sort of an oh, by the way information. And that's from the business district in the past. Like I said, there are sales tax revenues pledged and the business district increment. To the extent there's extra, the sales tax goes to our general fund and the Sunset Grove increment goes to the TIF district. So this gray column with kind of brownish colored, that's the extra sales tax from Sunset Grove, whether it's the 1% local or the 1% local or non-home rule infrastructure. Anything not needed to pay back that principal and interest can go straight to the village general fund, and that's what this represents. So we're looking at the tune of, call it 200-some thousand each year. And that's based on the fact that sales tax revenues are up and the increment for, the tax increment for Sunset Grove went up so nicely this year. The second column is the excess that would go to the rest of the TIF district, if I'm making sense. So first thing, we have to pay off those other bonds. Second, anything left over goes to the rest of the TIF district. This is the first year that this is actually contributed to the rest of the TIF district. Third column is the increment for all the other 7 groups that we showed on page 1. Fifth column is a little bit of interest, some miscellaneous revenues, and then transfers in. Those are required. The village has to do that out of the general fund. That's part of the TIF Act. We have to make a deposit equal to 7 to 10% of the overall incremental revenues. So last year, our increment was $383,000. We had to pay $38,000. Now we've gone up quite a bit. We have to pay $74,000. So the overall revenue is in that first blue column. The next columns are showing the advances from the Open Space Fund in the past. We have none projected for the future. And so the total sources overall are then the sum of that on the right. Any questions here?
Just one question, Ann, on the 2020, the big jump in 2020, is that the, what explains that? Is that the live-in payment or?
No, the live-in payment is not. If you're talking that one, that 462 there.
Yeah.
That is actually the fact that we had tax revenue. It was the finishing of paying the rebate to the grocery store. There's a little bit of a funkiness there.
Okay.
It's also the fact that when we refinanced, we kind of, you know, when you refinance, I don't know if anybody's refinanced their house and you kind of take out principal enough and then you restart a couple of months later. We actually had kind of, in concept, we have a bit of a gap in 2020 where went through the refinancing, we didn't have to pay the same amount of principal and interest. It got rolled into the refinancing. So both of those were upside.
So if you take out the one-time pump, what would that number be this year? Would it be down? See, I was figuring with COVID and everything else it'd be down.
No, COVID, in fact, our sales tax revenue mix couldn't be better for COVID. Okay. The drivers are Sunset Grove and Menards. I'm not, Denise and Dave can see the actuals and it's flatter up. I know I do the random Ann Kritzmeyer research and talk to the managers every time I'm in, if I see them. And every
you and I do the same
thing.
He must get sick and tired of having people ask that question.
Yeah, we have many businesses doing really well, though.
Yeah.
It's like the Ed Cock, like, how am I doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You'll
So
never
the
do
DIY is really supplementing the tax revenues really nicely.
Well,
then.
trying. Yeah. The thing in yellow, that is the placeholder because we have not yet recognized and transferred in the Dr. Levin payment on Archer, but that's where that would go.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, that would be a transfer in here. We have the money sitting in, we just haven't recognized it in here at this point. So that's where
Okay.
that would go.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Okay. Okay.
That's why that's in yellow. It's basically sitting there waiting for conversation on it. Next page. So the next page then says, what did we use all of these revenues for? Well, in the past, we can see, obviously, it would be a lot of capital projects. There's some debt issuance costs. We could put those in the Sunset Grove Business District. Vic, keep me honest here, but that's a liability of the full TIF district, so it's totally fair to put it here. There's that sales tax rebate, goes in here. Administrative costs, which we're estimating go up at 1.5% per year. That's that blue thing in the top. And then some transfers out. I would say, in the interest of time, ask me later what those are, but basically those are things like water infrastructure that got paid for by the TIF and then transferred to the water business and things like that. We don't anticipate more of that in the future. The actual expenses are really just keeping the TIF alive at this point, barring any other decisions later, but we're not projecting additional capital that runs through this TIF right now.
Mm-hmm.
Next page then says, all right, do we have excess? For the first year, we do. For the first year ever, we do. So if you see that gray stuff there, that would be the excess or deficit of TIF revenue after we pay the Sunset Grove bonds, but before any of the advances to the Open Space Fund and General Fund. So, if we didn't have those advances, this would be losing. It was losing money. These were deficits until this year. Meanwhile, because we have had those advances, principal has been due and not paid. Interest has been due and not paid. And arrearage, which is basically a penalty for not paying, has also started to add up. To the extent that we have positive cash flow here, by our ordinance, the first place it goes is to the Open Space Fund. And also by our regulations, the first thing it does is pay off the interest that we didn't pay in the past. So this spreadsheet, and I think it is designed to say whatever we put in the blue. Blue is where we put our input. So in the theory that we have 502,708 excess, I just put round numbers in. We pay the Open Space Fund $502,000. Because we haven't paid anything in several years, the first place it would go is interest, and that's that other one right there. Thank you very much, Bill, for doing the jiggle around on the cursor. So that's what. So this is good news. We can make payment this year, and this doesn't even include transferring in the sale of Archer lots. So this is very good news. The other good news is without any on these projections, on the assumption that property values go up 2% per year and all of the other things that we just covered, we can start making payments every year and pay off the Open Space Fund. So you can see until 2027, we make payments to the Open Space Fund. The calculation goes so that starts paying off the interest that's in arrears and then starts paying off principal in next year. This year it would only be against interest. In 2027, it pays that off, and there's a little to even start paying back the general fund advance. So that starts making a dent. It pays off the general fund in interest for a while. And the very last year, it starts actually making a dent into the principal. Again, this is all based on our projections, but there is money in hand this year, and so we absolutely can be making a payment to the Open Space Fund. Based on no new development, and of course we want to continue to encourage development.
So the total liability, it's hard to call it a liability, but the total liability for open space is 3.97 million. So when
wait till we get to page 7, Mike, because
okay.
That's a better guesstimate for you.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Are we okay to keep moving, everyone? Okay.
I don't want to feel anybody's bamboozled. I'm trying to make this so it's easier to track.
Yeah, really
Okay.
good job. Really
So-
good job.
All right, so now we're done with the projections about, revenues or sources and expenses or uses. These last 2 pages are really calculations that come into that, so you can see where the math comes from. Our ordinances establish 4% in interest and 2% in arrearage. Those are our ordinances. We could change that. If we reduced it, we would still pay back all the principal and we'd pay back less interest. There's by law, the open space fund would have been earning something in a very low bearing safe instrument or, something instrument. We would have to pay some level of interest. These are changeable. At this point, until you get into paying back the very last years, any dollar that goes to the open space fund, whether you call it principal, interest, or arrearage, it's still a dollar going to the open space fund. So that's where these calculations come from, is the interest due and then the arrearages.
Mhm.
And so that's where these are going to pay off. The very last page is part of your answer, Mike. So the stuff in yellow, these are the required principal payments per the ordinances that establish those advances. We haven't really shown these in our projections in the past, but they're important because that's what we owe. So those are the expected principal payments that we have not been making. So the overall outstanding principal to the open space fund is 2.625, and to the general fund is 4.474. Then the amount subject to arrearage, which is principal and interest we haven't paid, that's the next 2 columns. And these are, we true them up, or we've been truing them up based on the audited financials for the TIF district every year. The projections aren't exact, but they're close enough for this purpose. The reason they're not exact is because the principal's due December 1st, and this is on fiscal years that are May 1st to April 30th. The timing gets funky. If we drew on an advance in October, that changes it. So the timing gets a little funky, but I think for our idea of, are we in the zone of being able to pay this off or not, that's where we're there. That 21,000 in the second to the last column on the right, where it's negative. So that column is the overall principal plus interest, which I think is partly what you're asking, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So the balance is somewhere on 3.199 until we make that $500,000 payment and more interest accrues. That's right above the line if you go up a little bit, Bill. So 3.199 in 2020, 2.842. 2.842 assumes we do pay the $502,000 that's shown on the prior page, and it also assumes that more interest and the principal payment are due. So that's all the net of all that. Like I said, they don't tie exactly to our financials until I true it up because of the timing differences. We would never actually go negative 21,000 the last year. We'd make it tie up to the last dollar, but for our planning purposes, this basically says in 2027, the open space fund can get paid off based on these assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
It says the general fund does not get fully paid off, but dents are made, payments are made.
Unless there's more development. Yeah.
Unless there's more, right. These assumptions assume no new capital projects right now. It assumes no new development in the TIF district. So either revenue or expense could change based on future boards.
Now, with the refinance, with the extension, did we forego an option to extend, or do we still have that option if it's
on the
performing?
TIF district or the bond?
On the TIF.
I don't know that they're related. Dick?
On the ability to extend the TIF, we could not without approval of the General Assembly. We did extend the time, and I think we extended it to the expiration on the refinancing bonds. So
Right.
we're not going to have a further extension on that.
Yes.
Okay,
the bond,
so 2032 is it then?
Yeah, the bonds now match the end of the TIF district. They can be paid off
Right.
2 years early.
They are callable. You know, there's an opportunity to advance pay them, but we have to wait, I think, until 2027 or 2029.
I think it
don't
was a
recall
10-year.
which.
I think it was a 10-year call.
Yeah,
So I think it
2029 then.
Yeah, I think it's the last couple of years opportunity. And then the TIF district, that's not related to the refinancing. That's just the TIF district that says you'd have to extend, I think, with everybody agreeing.
Okay.
Hey, now to the rest of the board, are there any questions? I know Ian went through all this. I guess there's light at the end of the tunnel is what we're seeing here, right? So this is great news, actually.
Yeah, I thought it would be helpful before the other TIF district conversation for 2 reasons. Number one, that yes, there's some really good news here with, I think, reasonable assumptions going ahead. The other is that this is the first year that this has been positive. So for any future TIF district, and we're not contemplating and tying any capital actual projects at this point, but we'd want to be really circumspect about matching potential sources to pay for them along with the capital projects. This one got a little over its skis as it made commitments, and then in the teeth of the financial crisis, things were really problematic.
Any questions?
I just wrote down 2 policy issues. One is the interest rate we're charging ourselves, right? That's still a fungible thing. And then the second is extension, structurally extension, if it makes sense. If you got a well-performing engine, right?
Yep.
You have an opportunity potentially.
But here's the interesting thing about the interest rate we charge ourselves. We're putting it right back into the open space fund, so we have the money. So it's, you know, we could reduce it and then we'd have money to do other things, or we put it there and we can use it to buy open space.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking the message you send to the residents and everything else, a commitment, you know, whatever that commitment was.
Yep.
Right.
And, you know, making good on that commitment. That's all. But it's a policy issue, though. All right.
Yep.
So if we could,
It was
then,
awesome, man. If nobody else says it, that was really good. Thank you.
I'm glad somebody tracked it, Mike. Thank you. I was trying to make it more linear and explainable.
Yeah.
All right, and thank you. So then there's a resolution in our board packet, and Vic, you may want to help us a little bit because we also have a schedule in our board packet that we're moving down to start the TIF for that south gateway area, right? And so we're going to have, if we have a resolution in our board packet for tonight, but then we're going to have another one for the public hearing in the next board meeting. So help explain a little bit, you know, why we're doing this one tonight, and then we're going to do another one in another couple of weeks.
The action tonight is really with respect to the previously approved authorization for Tesca Associates, and it gives us the ability to reach back if we choose to cover all the expenses that have been incurred in connection with the Tesca project or work project. The other thing that the action tonight does is it makes very clear what the start time is for the schedule. Now, there's another action that's coming forward, which is statutorily required. The action tonight is not. It's really just a matter of trying to put a pin in the calendar. The action at the next meeting will be a more formal step in the overall consideration of the establishment of the TIF.
Okay, yeah, and by just establishing the TIF, we're not, it's a container, it's an empty container, and we have the ability then to, you know, spend money and recapture that money through the tax increment. But we don't ever have to use it if we don't want to, but it does provide some other advantages for us too, even protecting our borders, so to speak.
Correct. The issue of establishing the TIF, once you have the initial outlay to get it in place, basically to create the the structure of the TIF. You don't have to spend another nickel. And as you know, as has been outlined before, one of the advantages of the TIF is that you can use the taxes that a property might pay as its own incentive to have them do some development that they might not otherwise do. And that's really one of the economic development tools that we can more effectively use. A lot of communities might offer tax abatement. We don't levy a tax, so we can't offer that, but we can provide for reimbursement of recognized TIF costs and basically use the tax payments that are being made to cover those costs. And again, this is different than the approach used for the downtown portion of the TIF that's currently in place. You know, again, I think Dave often refers to it as a TIF of a TIF of two cities here, because the Sunset Grove is all self-financing. No village dollars are part of that. It's only the dollars that village isn't collecting for the sales tax that wouldn't be there if there wasn't a Sunset Grove. With the downtown, the village did have direct monetary outlays, and that is not, at least from what I understand of the board's discussion and some of the outline of the use of this Southwest Gateway TIF, it is not the program for that TIF. It wouldn't be to spend money, but rather to have an economic development tool in hand to encourage others to spend their money to get some kind of rebate.
So, no, thank you for that, Vic. I guess I would open it up to the board discussion here. You've got a resolution in front of you.
I have one question for Vic. In the authorization, it mentions about development consistent with the village's comprehensive plan. And I wondered how strict that is. In other words, if something comes along that isn't strictly within the comprehensive plan, does that tie our hands in any way?
The beauty of a comprehensive plan is it's a living document that can be amended. So if the village has an opportunity to capture a development that is viewed as being both consistent with zoning and the best interests of the village, but not specifically in line with what the comprehensive plan says, then we adjust the comprehensive plan to reflect the new reality.
Okay, so we would amend the comprehensive plan, but we wouldn't have to change anything in the TIF.
Correct. The things that the TIF plan will be doing is identifying types of expenditures and overall amount that can be expended. We won't be able to go over the overall amount for the dollars, but the types of expenditures are going to be stated. And if you look at the draft plan, they're stated fairly generically and could be easily identified for a lot of different economic development purposes.
Okay.
Other questions, comments?
I think Ann did a fabulous job on this. Thank you.
See, Ann, there's another compliment.
Thank you.
So I guess here's, I mean, if there's no objection to proceeding, if somebody want to make a motion to approve this resolution, or otherwise speak your mind, I suppose.
I would make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing and ratifying the undertaking of a feasibility study for the designation of a South Gateway tax increment financing redevelopment project area.
Moved by Trustee O'Reilly, seconded by
Second.
Trustee Nora. It's a roll call.
Trustee Michelle.
No.
Trustee O'Connor.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Yes.
And Trustee Borowski.
Yes.
All right. The ayes have it. Motion carried.
Bill?
Yes.
This is Dave. If I can, I just wanted to also echo some of the comments from earlier, since there's already been 2 positive comments about the work that Ann has done. I also wanted to acknowledge the work that Ann has done in addition to the work that Denise put into this to get it to a point where we'd be able to present it as we have this evening. Between both of them, we've got, I think, a great document moving forward to be able to project, track, put in potential impacts for different developments as they come forward. It's really a great tool, and I just wanted to acknowledge them.
Thank you, Denise,
Thanks.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to do that all along, but if it wasn't very clear, Denise was a huge help, huge contributor.
Is there any way that can be, maybe not shortened, but yes, shortened, that it could be converted into something we can put in a newsletter? Highlight.
Sure. A quick narrative and highlights, yes.
If you would do that, I think it would be great for the village to know this.
Okay.
All right, great idea.
Thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
All right.
Yay, Denise.
What'd you say, Bobby? Sorry.
I said, yay, Denise.
Yay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Ann. And thank you, Dave. All right, moving out right along. So the next item on the agenda, which is actually number 5, but not number 4 in the manager's report, is an ordinance amending the village code liquor license regulations. And this was about some, if a business is in violation of certain things that, hasn't paid their bills and so on, we would have the ability to not renew a liquor license. And Vic, I don't know if you want to provide any more explanation on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
As you said, the contemplation was not to reward scofflaws with a liquor license and the benefits that go along with it. The village can amend its code, and what you had before you would allow that. When you get down to the actual application of these requirements on a case-by-case basis, you're going to have to likely look at whether the violation is any way related to the liquor license itself. We did cite a case in there where the license was violated because a patron came in with a revolver and used a firearm in a location it wasn't allowed, but it was in the liquor store, or the bar rather, and the liquor license was purportedly revoked. The courts ultimately reversed it because it was not related to the conduct of the licensee in the way the licensee conducted the license. Rather, it was a third-party action. So that's sort of the extreme use of that kind of provision. And I would suggest that, while we would have, if the board were to adopt this ordinance, we would have this tool available to keep liquor licensees in line with our overall ordinances. A speeding ticket would probably not be the basis for revoking a liquor license, if that were the case. So, I mean, there's going to have to be some measure of nexus between the activity and the license, or the licensed premises, and so that was our reason for the cautionary language in our transmittal.
Thank you, Vic. Any discussion? Chris, you want off mute? Do you have something you want to say?
No, I was just going to move to approve an ordinance amending sections 3-2-4 and 3-2-16 of Long Grove Village Code regarding liquor licenses, regarding violations and debts.
Moved by trustee Borowski, seconded by?
I'll second it.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Kritzmeyer seconded. Roll call. Amy?
Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly.
No,
That was a no.
that was a no.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Nora.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor.
Nay.
That was a nay. Correct?
Yeah, do we need to step back and talk about it or?
No.
No?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. That was a nay. So Trustee Micho.
No.
Okay. Trustee Jacob, are we going to you for the tiebreaker?
Well, so here's the question. This is what we didn't talk about this. Do we really need this is the question, right? So does it help us?
Does it hurt us?
Do we want more or less government?
Yeah, we probably want less government.
What would happen if we do nothing?
That's a great question.
If we do nothing, our regulations are in place as they are. We don't have a specific basis for denying a liquor license if there are other related violations. For example, if a package store has significant building code violations, we would not be able to look to those building code violations as a reason not to renew the liquor license. And that's a policy choice, whether you think that's relevant or not. One might say that by having the liquor license, inviting people in and then exposing them to whatever risks are involved from the building code violation is not what we want to encourage. But another perspective might be that that's an entirely different issue and should be treated entirely differently.
This is leverage that we wouldn't have to necessarily implement.
That's correct.
But there's no teeth in this, you know, according to case law.
I would disagree with that. I would say that there's plenty of teeth. It just depends on what you try to bite.
Well, if the opposition decides to push it and you go to court, you don't have real strong case law, correct?
Oh no, the case law is good when it's properly applied. I think that, you know, the reason why I mentioned this particular case is that the activity of the licensee in that case was very tenuous compared to the activity that was the basis for the non-renewal. It was a third party's activities that just coincided with their premises, not anything the licensee did. I think when the licensee itself is culpable, the basis for the denial becomes much more justifiable.
But what does this have to do with their alcohol? Not the proposed ordinance. What does this situation have to do with their liquor license, except it's a club to hit them with?
Well, I think that we're talking about a regulation of general applicability, and it may have applicability in many instances. Again, the building permit or the building code violation is an example of that. If someone also has any kind of health code violations, that may be a basis for denying them the liquor license. The liquor license is viewed as a privilege, and if someone is being a scofflaw on other levels, to reward them with the license could be a view for an inconsistent policy outcome.
You know, I'm thinking about this. I'm gonna say no, and the reason is that we have not had any problems, and I don't know how many years, right? So, is this something our village really needs? If it's a health issue, the health department will cover it. If it's a building code issue, we're going to go after them for code enforcement. And I don't know if we want to put somebody out of business, which we could do, you know, for their building code violations, or something like that. So I think in this case, it doesn't really help us a whole lot, and I'm going to vote no unless somebody has changed their vote. That's my vote.
Okay, I've got that. So
Yeah, I
3-4.
Yeah, I would note that, the board doesn't have any kind of procedural prerequisite. If conditions change and you want to revisit this, you could do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, so if,
Well, a 2-week heartbeat.
in a 2-week heartbeat, right. So, I mean, if we notice that we've got problems with several businesses and they're not resolving them, we could implement this code, right? And so for future licenses or renewals, they would be impacted.
Wouldn't we be better off implementing it before there was, an actual reason at the moment? Could that be construed as we just changed the law to put the screws to somebody? Whereas if we just implement it right now, it's there, it's a tool, whether we use it or don't, it's there. And I actually would feel better about doing it under these circumstances than passing something like this to affect a specific outcome if we are having a specific problem with, a business owner.
Vic, you want to comment on that?
I think that certainly an affected owner could say that the change was done not for a general purpose, but for them, and therefore use that as a defense, and a court may find that persuasive depending on the circumstances. We certainly have this type of provision already in place for our business licenses. We don't have it in place for our liquor licenses. Some communities have similar provisions, some do not. I think that, again, maybe it's something that, doesn't have a comfort level today. And the board can always revisit this at another time if it chooses, or not use it at all. I mean, we do have the ability to otherwise affect a violation. I think where it has been used is really as a further response to scofflaws. And you do get those in communities. And when you have them, other communities view that as an incongruity to give them the benefit of a license for sale of liquor while they are thumbing their nose at your laws.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my vote as a no unless somebody changes theirs. This motion is not carried.
I'm good with that. Thank you for the discussion.
All right. Moving right along, unless anyone wants to say anything else on this, I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda. And that is the treasurer's report. Ann, do you want to take us through that?
Sure. I don't want to give it short shrift, but the basic treasurer's report is the bills that we need to approve to be paid. Where have we got this here? I had it up and I didn't. I want to try and take a look at it. But basically, oh, here it is. There isn't anything out of the ordinary necessarily out of this. You can see this is the time of year we pay large bills because we're paying for infrastructure for construction that happens during the summer. So if there are no questions, or I'll take any questions right now, otherwise I'd move that we approve the treasurer's report for dated invoices due dates of 9/9 to 9/9/2020.
Any discuss? Okay, so the motion's no discussion at all? If not, it's moved by trustee Kritzmeyer, seconded by trustee Michaud.
If there's discussion or questions, please go forward.
Otherwise, I will.
All right.
Otherwise, that's a live motion.
It's a live motion. So moved by trustee Kritzmeyer, seconded by trustee Michaud. Roll call.
Trustee Michaud?
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Aye, sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. Trustee Nora?
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly?
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer?
Aye.
And Trustee Borowski?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing that does not need an action, but is a discussion, is our
You know, I
account
cut out, Ann, so I think I have an unstable internet connection. I'm not unstable, I think, but my internet is, right? So that was all ayes, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Or maybe I am unstable, but go ahead, I'm sorry. Motion carried.
Okay, motion carried. I was going to say the other thing that's on the agenda but does not need an action is really the account balance on where we are in our overall financials. The revenues continue to exceed the expenses, so we're building up or rebuilding the general fund reserves. We're now at 74%. Part of that we covered where there's additional sales tax revenues going to the general fund, so that's good news. One of the things Dave and I have had conversations about is the much promised financial dashboard. And with the new auditor, his conjecture, he'll double checking with Debbie and Seidler, is that she's been pretty busy with Sikich and the new audit group. And therefore, we're going to ask to try and have that dashboard available by the end of September. He's seen an early view. I have not seen a view. But one of the things behind this, I was seeing things that we thought were seasonalized. In other words, I saw that we were behind on the snow removal, and the thought was we were going to make sure the budget didn't require snow removal in July. In fact, it doesn't, but there was something else mashed into there. So we're going to continue to look at that, and hopefully 2 meetings from now, we'll have something more substantial to be watching our cash flow. We've had a lot of happy news right now, but a lot of things come in arrears. And with the whole pandemic, we're going to want to keep a good tab on the revenues coming in. We put pretty conservative budgets in, but we still want to keep looking at that every month. And then as well, be able to have a much better view of actual cash flow in terms of where the revenues we expect and then where the invoices we expect to have to pay when we expect to have to pay them. So there's no action on this, but if anybody's got questions, please feel free.
Any questions?
Okay, and my other topic we already covered, so end of report.
Yeah, I don't know if, well, there's the CIP, there wasn't much that changed, Jeff, correct? You submitted a...
That's correct, Bill. We just updated it with the awarded numbers to Arrow for the road program.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right, if not, we're going to move into the village president and trustee reports. The very first item on there is the appointment to the Scenic Corridor Commission and Conservancy Commission, Maggie McCasey. Jim, I know that you and Chairman Smith both interviewed Maggie, and you thought that she had a great knowledge of conservancy issues already, and knows a lot, and she would be a great addition to the committee. So I don't know, you both recommended her appointment, and I didn't know if you wanted to add any color or commentary to that.
That's correct, Bill. They McCasey's have a large area of conservancy that they're restoring on their property, so they've kind of got a hands-on sort of take to this. They both come from Michigan, and I believe her husband's father was involved in a lot of park district things. So I guess she's kind of got it in her blood, but she interviewed very well. She's very enthusiastic, very energetic, and I think you're correct. She'll make a wonderful addition to the CSC.
Now there was another thing, I don't know, you recommended that we make Kathy, right? Kathy Weiberg as a ex officio member, because she'll be technically taking her spot. Is that correct?
She will be. Kathy can no longer function due to health issues, but if she could come back, or if we could find a way to utilize her knowledge, we would like to be able to do that. She would not be a voting member, but we would like to tap into her expertise in the CSC. She is, I think, the last original member that was still on the committee.
So I don't know, Vic, I'm going to turn to you, and how do we do that as well, or is that something we can't do tonight, or?
We don't have that in our ordinance, and it's not on the agenda for tonight. There's also a question of whether making it formal is necessary. You certainly can, but I think that another way might be to recognize her as a member emeritus and confer upon her with that the ability to participate freely as any other member. She won't be voting, and it won't matter then for quorum or other things like that. And it also means that as a non-member, she won't be counted when you're looking at number of heads at a gathering for purposes of the Open Meetings Act.
I think that sounds like a great plan. Jim, any concerns with that?
No, actually, that's kind of what Kelly and I had talked about, and the outcome we were hoping for is to just have Kathy be able to participate in a non-voting way when she could.
Okay. Any objections or comments from the board? If not, I would be looking for a motion.
We aren't in a position to have that motion tonight, but if we want to have a resolution, which might also be coupled with, some kind of acknowledgement of her past service, that might be an appropriate thing for the next meeting.
Right. I was talking, sorry about that. I confused the issues. I was talking about the appointment of Maggie McCasey.
So moved.
Sorry.
Moved by Trustee
Second.
O'Reilly, seconded by Trustee Michaud. Roll call.
All right. Trustee Borowski,
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly,
Yes.
Trustee Nora,
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor,
Yes, I have a yes vote and a fast question. Did we know that this opening was an opening and I missed it, or was there notice about this anywhere?
Yeah, I think it was in the bridge, actually.
Yeah, we've been putting it out there. We've been looking for somebody on the Scenic Corridor Commission. So yeah.
All right, thank you. So I stand
Trustee Trustee Michaud.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Motion carried. And then Vic, you'll help me or help the Dave or whatever with the member emeritus for the next meeting.
Sure.
We can hopefully recognize Kathy at the next meeting. All right, motion carried. As I'm just going to follow this right through, the next one on the agenda or on our trustee reports is the Illinois 53 and Martin Drain Tile Study Meeting that we had this week. I thought it went well, and I don't know what's the best way to summarize the meeting. I don't know if Jeff, you want to help me here or not, summarize it.
Certainly. Yeah, so we had the meeting last Thursday evening via Zoom. We had probably, about 8 to 10 residents participate. Went over the drain tile survey, answered questions that any of the residents have, and the meeting was kind of flavored towards, here's the drain tile, and we wanted to make residents aware of the drain tiles that were found and mapped on their property, and making sure that those flow properly is their responsibility, as they're all on private property. The village also has some drain tiles that it needs to do the same. So I agree with Bill. It was a great meeting. It was productive. One item that was discussed was the fixing of the drain tile in the Route 53 right away by NICOR. And I don't have a schedule from them yet, but NICOR has moved on the request to fix those drain tile connections that were hit, if you will, or damaged, as part of their relocation effort in preparation for IDOT's project. I keep asking for a schedule and don't have it yet, but as soon as I have that, I will share it with the residents and the board. My sense is it will be sooner than later, but and again, I don't want to make too many commitments before that's before I see it written down somewhere. So that that was my take on it. Very productive. Just a great place to start the conversation about that.
So Jeff, does that mean NICOR does say that, I mean, they've agreed they will do it, you just don't have a schedule? Or is the schedule the first kind of written confirmation of that?
So NICOR has said that they're going to send out a crew to excavate, observe, verify, document what needs to be done. They'll have their crews on site that same day to make the repairs. There was one resident that asked if those repairs would disrupt their gas service, and the answer to that is no. So that's a good thing.
Do we know who attended that Zoom meeting?
I've got a few names written down. Dave, I don't know if you took any screenshots or anything like that. I did not.
Sometimes we get people that slip through the cracks, and I'd like to hope that we would keep them as a cohesive group and communicate on a regular basis with them until this is done.
I think you have them on, Dave, you can speak up here, have them on the mail list, right? But like Jim Wojton,
Yeah,
Mary.
there's an email list that has been populated, not just by the village, but by the residents themselves. So we've got I think a pretty comprehensive list of folks.
Tricia Trackman, right? Blair, is it Chosen? Jim Wojton? I did my best. Mary Manjun, Scott Deutsch, Tim Burge or something. Did I have that right? Does it sound right? Some of the names I scribbled down the best I could.
I think that's right. I think that's accurate.
I made a list too, so if it would help. There's a couple people that weren't invited that showed up. Me being one of them. So,
what else is new, Mike?
There were a couple of other people there. You know, so the one thing that we don't want to overlook is there's one resident that's kind of forced into doing a major reconstruction on his own property because of the NICOR schedule, and basically he's going to dump water onto one of his neighbors. So he was there specifically to find out the scheduling and everything else. And unfortunately, it's not going to work out well between two neighbors. They got to still figure that out. But so that was a productive meeting.
I just want to make sure that my point was taken, that we need a cohesive list that Dave communicates directly with in my name and Rita's name and Ann's name and the whole board, so that they know that we're watching this.
That would be good.
I think we captured almost everybody except the Fonseca family on the
right.
other side. I don't believe that anyone by that name was attending. And we talked about their property, but I don't know that. Has anybody heard anything from them, or did they respond at all? I guess, Dave, that would be a question for you.
This is Jeff. I'll jump in. The Fonseca, they're on the south side of 53. Their address 2224 Shadow, if I'm not mistaken. They are downstream or immediately south, if you will, of the Trackman property. The Trackman property has a lot of standing water in their backyard. That was where one of the drain tiles was damaged by the utilities. And Laura Fonseca is her name, contacted me probably about once a month, and it coincided with when Mark and Tricia Trackman were mechanically pumping the water out of their backyard. You know, some of it was more being caught off guard. You know, she's seeing water in her side yard. It hadn't rained, and kind of wondering what was going on over there.
But she's not overly alarmed. Was that your take on it?
So that was what we had over the last couple months, the discussions I had with her. She is concerned that when it rains, that side yard swale, if you will, between her property and the neighbor, it's pretty full of water. Kind of the same situation. The house that I refer to it as the one that Cammie Gould owned. You know, she's got a very flowing creek when it rains through hers. So the Fonseca's issue is a lot like that one.
Okay, I'm going to try one more time. Do we have a list of those people involved in this situation who will all know what everyone else knows at the same time?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
All right.
Dave, I'll send you the list that I have of just the standouts. I can do that.
Well, we have it documented a couple different ways, right? Including the mail list that Dave has. Everyone's on it. So, all right. Let me move to the next item, if I can, that's in the manager's report. And that's the Buffalo Creek Mitigation Site landscaping screening. So as you know, when they put the pathways in and did the wetland mitigation project off of Checker Road, they clear cut a bunch of trees, leaving a vision or a view of Lake Cook Road. When we saw this happening, we tried to stop them and prevent them from cutting more trees down, but they continued to do that. We ended up having a joint meeting with the Lake County Department of Transportation, the Lake County Forest Preserve, Long Grove. They had proposed at the time that they could add screening back in, but that it would cost the village a third of the estimated cost. There was a proposal put together around $90,000. So they wanted $30,000 from us. This is a couple of years ago now. We didn't respond quickly, and they pulled that offer off the table. We were at the time, we're also, had concerns about using our money since we didn't cause this problem, but the Forest Preserve said that they had spent a lot of money at our request to put the entry points and put the pathways in there, and they just didn't have the money. There was a couple different meetings where we tried to engage with the residents to come up with a solution. It kind of died for a while, but I had been continuing to get emails. One particular person that emails me a lot was Joe Caruso. I ended up talking to Sandy Hart early in the year again, brought it up. Mara Altenberg took over the board seat for that district. She got engaged, and she pulled together a meeting at the end of June to discuss what might be able to be done. So, we talked about that we don't have the money to pay for this. Maybe there's some other angle. Maybe we could give an easement so for parking by the soccer field and so forth. But they came back and said, we don't have the money either. We're going to need something to help pay for the installation of the plants and so forth. So they brought back the $30,000 proposal in total. Since this will benefit the Country Club Estates residents, Chuck can explain that he convened an emergency meeting or impromptu meeting to talk about would they be willing to pick up some of the tab for that. And so he had that meeting last week. And so the discussion on that was to pick up 15,000 of the 30,000, with potentially the village picking up the other half. The Forest Preserve has said that we can pay over 2 years, 2 fiscal years. We don't have to pay it all at once, so we could split it between two, which is a new addition. So I know Chuck wants to say a few words, and I think it would be helpful for him to talk about that as well. But you know, that's kind of how we got to where I wanted to make sure we put this on the agenda so that we can talk about it and decide what we may or may not want to do. So Chuck, if you could add some commentary, I'd really appreciate it as well.
Thanks, Bill. Good recap, by the way. So last week, Bill brought this to my attention that the proposal was back on the table for the village to participate in this cost to add screening. So I'm vice president of Country Club Estates Homeowners Association. I got in touch with our president. We convened a very quick impromptu meeting of our board. And the overall consensus of our board was, we think this would be a good path to go down. We believe we have the financial wherewithal to share 50-50 split with the village, with the one caveat that given the amount of money we're talking about, we are planning on going to our residents and poll the residents to see what their thoughts are. Country Club Estates is a very large community, and the bulk of the community, myself included, don't really or aren't really negatively impacted on a day-to-day basis from this clear cutting. But if you've been by there, it is just, you know, abysmal. I don't know how else to put it. It's just a horrible looking site. Something needs to be done, and I'd rather see it done with proper plantings than just hoping for weed trees to, you know, grow back up and provide the screening that was lost when the Forest Preserve unilaterally clear cut everything. We've held off to, as far as polling our residents, basically to kind of get a flavor as to what this board is thinking. If this board is willing to pursue some type of financial arrangement, then we'll take it to our board. My recommendation is, if this board has a positive view on doing something, then perhaps when we get to the point of voting, and I know that's not this evening, we would vote with a contingency that Long Grove would participate, provided Country Club Estates also participates. I think we did that with the Shenandoah flooding issue a few years back.
Hey, Chuck, one more thing to add to that too. So this won't happen in the fall of this year.
Right.
It would happen because of permits and stuff like that they have to get. You know, Army Corps of Engineer permits, because it is a wetland mitigation project. It would happen in the spring of next year, but they would need to know in the fall if this is something that we would be willing to do. So
yeah, we plan on getting starting to poll our residents as soon as, you know, this week, provided there's some type of positive feedback from this board. If the consensus of this board is there's absolutely no interest, well, obviously it doesn't make any sense for us to poll our residents, because we cannot afford to come up with the $30,000.
Right.
Could you clarify, you're talking 50-50?
Yes.
50-50.
So Country Club Estates would pay $15,000 towards the 30. And if I understand Bill right, if the village can pay over 2 years, I would like to also present that to Country Club Estates residents as, you know, a means for us to pay, you know, our portion of it.
So this is Ann, our fiscal year starts again next May 1st. Would they be looking for us to pay $7,500 before May 1st and then another $7,500 after May 1st?
No, the way I look at it, it's the following fiscal year, because this won't even start, you know, or get completed until probably the April, March timeframe. So
Okay.
the next fiscal year is the way I understand it. we'll have to
So we-
clarify.
So if 7,500, let's call it the summer of 2021, and 7,500, let's call it like the summer of 2022.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
But we have a finite amount of time here before the county pulls us off the table, correct? Did
Yeah, they need
give
to,
us
they
a
need to know this
deadline?
fall. No, they didn't give us a deadline, but they need to know this fall. So it's not something that we could spend a lot of time debating. But we have, it's not, doesn't have to be necessarily decided tonight, but
Right.
it would be nice to know. And maybe we can go around the horn and just get feedback from everyone.
If I can, Bill, just one point to help focus on the timing and why the timing is important, as I understand it, is that Lake County would be tagging the material now. They've got a process that they need to go through themselves in order to acquire the material. They're tagging it now for transplanting in the spring, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's a $90,000 project in total. And there were plans in the board packet.
And the Forest Preserve and Lake Dot would pick up 30 each?
Yes.
Is that the
Right.
understanding? Okay.
Yep.
Is this something we can do without setting a precedent that could bite us in the future?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that because I don't know if we're setting a precedent or not.
Let me jump in. How you spend money is always an individual decision, so it doesn't set any kind of legal precedent. Does it give other residents the opportunity to come and say, well, you did it for them, do it for us? Of course, that's always a possibility. But it's not a precedent of anything that is binding on you. It's really just an argument someone can make.
Yeah. Is this something that that survey service that we signed up for would be useful to poll the Country Club Estates residents?
Well, we are actually going to do it through our homeowners association website. There's a lot of reasons why we want to do it that way. We'll of course be happy to share the feedback we get from our residents, but it's a brand new website for us and we're trying to drive more residents to use this website. So we're going to start by putting out a mailing basically to every resident, telling them what's going on, giving them an overview, asking them to go to our website to respond to this survey. So it's kind of a twofold. We genuinely need their feedback. We don't want to spend $15,000 because 7 people out of 260 homes decided it was a good idea. But at the same time, it would also help us drive more of our residents to the new website.
I see. I was just thinking that the anonymity of the survey responses insofar as who said what when might encourage people to A, respond, and B, respond more truthfully, knowing that their voice counts, but that their neighbors don't necessarily know who said what. That was the only thing I was coming from.
That's actually a very good point. I didn't really consider that. So I want to chat with our board about, can we keep it somewhat anonymous?
Okay.
Or at least just amongst CCE's homeowners board.
Right. I was going to say, I'd be in favor of doing it broadly. I mean, Country Club Estates is not the only, they'd be the ones spending money on their side, but lots of people, including me and others, use that and may want to weigh in.
That's it.
Like Mike Sarletto, do you know, I mean, Paul Anderson, where he lives, that's not considered Country Club Estates, is it?
I agree. I was going to make a comment. I'm there all the time. And it's not only is it just not the residents that are on the north side of Checker that look directly onto Lake Cook Road, But you have Shenandoah and you have, was it Lincoln?
Lincoln. Yeah.
They are straight shots. So you have no less than probably another 10 to 12 homes combined. They're very wide streets. You take a walk down that street heading south and you're you're looking right at Lake Cook Road. They never had that problem before. And even though it was crap vegetation, it was a nice screen. I mean, you felt like you were still in the woods, you know, but it is horrible. And I'm there all the time. So
I could see using the poll as an experiment, Rita, broadly.
Yeah.
But would you be asking them if the village should be spending money or if Country Club Estates should be spending money?
I would probably pose it, it's subject to debate, but I would say, should the village spend money to match, assuming Country Club Estates, and just lay it out, 90,000, 30 from their taxes are going there no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right, and the presentation that we listened to said that the survey itself could be, and I agree with what you're saying regarding other people who use it who may be willing to contribute something. But that survey, she said, could be targeted just to the Country Club Estates residents.
Well, there's another way that you could spin this whole damn thing, which might be kind of clever. And that is the topic of PPPs, the public-private partnerships. So this could be used as one example. If you want to bring more revenue to the village incrementally on solving problems, where the village's dollars are going to go a lot further with some private investment and that sort of thing, this may be a great opportunity to you cast it that way, and this may be an example of that. Of course, that might differentiate between the folks that directly benefit and those that in the concept of PPP really kind of like that idea, and it might open more doors.
Can I step us back though a second? So the survey, great thought, great conversation here, right? But just generally speaking, this notion of us picking up half the cost of the 30,000 paying over 2 years, can I just get a feel for where the board sits on that, just in general?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Chuck, how many homes are in Country Club Estates? How many participants would be contributing?
Well, the contribution would come from monies we've accrued through our homeowners association dues. So
how many homes?
Theoretically, everybody.
How many
about
homes?
260.
260 spread over 2 years. And what are the current dues there? Like $50, right?
$50 per year.
Right. I just find that the Country Club Estates dues are ridiculously low compared to what other people are doing in the village.
I suggested raising it by $10 a year, and was almost shot.
I get it. Good for you guys. I get it. I'd love to have that situation too, but it's not realistic. We can't build paths in this village to connect up the communities, which has been on the radar screen for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, if we're going to take money and invest it in the benefit of all the residents, I think we need to focus our resources on things that truly benefit all the resources. I mean, Country Club, the comment I heard earlier was we're not sure if the rest of the residents are going to support the 7 who are complaining about the view. I don't know if we've got 8,000 who are going to support investing to protect the view of 7. I just don't see that.
You slightly misunderstood me, Chris. I was saying we didn't feel comfortable a board of 7 making a decision to spend 15,000 without getting feedback from our residents.
Okay, yeah, I did
has funded the money we have in the bank right now. So.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I'm going to take 15 grand and give it to Rita. I'm not going to reinvest and put trees on somebody else's property.
Oh,
fair enough.
All right, thanks, Chris, for the feedback. Can Trustee O'Reilly, can I get feedback from you?
Oh, I could argue both sides.
Okay.
I have arguments for both sides.
So do I, Bobby, to be honest with you. I could argue both sides of this coin as well. So I actually appreciate Chris's position. I totally get it.
Well, I think it's horrendous what the Forest Preserve did. And I don't know that I feel any guilt in that, but I think we should feel guilty about what somebody else did to our neighbors. And so I would argue for it on the one hand, but it also concerns me that we've got people who have flooding problems, and we're very, very careful not to get involved in that. So that would be my two sides at this point. But I specifically with Country Club Estates, do you include every street in that? Because I know you've got different groups within Country Club Estates. So are you saying that every street would be included in this?
As far as the survey?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so when Mike mentioned Shenandoah, they're part of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Lincoln and Shenandoah, that whole, we call it the front nine of Country Club Estates. They are very negatively impacted by this situation.
Oh, God, yes.
I live on the back nine. I almost never go over there and see it. So for me personally, I could say,
well,
we approve it or we don't.
From it, so.
Yeah. But my point is, I'm looking at it from a completely different perspective. You know, obviously, we'd like to help our residents, but at the same time, I understand we're all talking about improving property that isn't even in the village. We'll benefit from it, but we're improving someone else's land. So that's kind of my two sides of it.
So that's an important point. We therefore couldn't even apply for a grant. There are landscaping grants available for ecological reasons and so on and so forth. I failed to remember that we don't own the land. So even if we applied for a grant, we couldn't do anything about it because it's not our property, right?
It's unincorporated Lake County. Yeah.
Yeah. I completely forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great deal to basically get the benefit of $90,000 worth of landscaping for a total of 30, which, you know, the trees clean the air, they shield the noise as well as the view. I like the idea of the private-public partnership. I'm open to pursuing it and seeing how the residents respond.
Thank you, Ann.
Is there still mention made about parking and giving up part of the soccer field?
We threw out the idea of offering, in rather than payment, allowing them to use the soccer field, the beginning part of it, not the field itself, but the driveway when you come in as parking, and that would get folks from not parking on the side of the road there, which we've had issues, and doing it in instead of a payment. They weren't interested in that because they actually need the money to help pay for the installation. So, but that was a thought we could maybe barter a little bit and do something creative like that. Wouldn't take away the soccer field, but it would be, it would use the driveway. It could be reconfigured as we go into the soccer field. They could push the gates back and provide for some parking. It wouldn't cost us anything.
As a sidebar to the screening issue, we should consider doing that. It is really dangerous on Checker these days. People are constantly just parking in their cars. That's a narrow road to begin with. Their cars are half into the road, and
why is parking allowed there anyway?
It's not, but there's no real enforcement.
There's some revenue sitting there.
Yeah, there you go. Ironically, we had the meeting, and we were out there, in front of Buffalo Creek. And what street were we on? Is it not Shenandoah? Is it Shenandoah? We were there, and a resident came out and started complaining about people parking in front of her house. And there is a no parking sign that's in front of her house, but they park in front of her house and then they go walk the trails. And so we were sitting there, you know, we didn't even plan this in front of the Forest Preserve, saying, hey, you know, here's some parking, and they, you know, this would be a great thing, and this will be our way of paying you. And they weren't interested in that.
That would be an interest. I mean, they need parking. I mean, every time I'm there, because the whole pandemic has increased, there's more people walking there than I've ever seen before. I've parked at Temple High and I wrote them a thank you note.
The improvements they've made to that forest preserve are just outstanding. They've really done a great job, and they neglected the one area we're talking about right now.
As a suggestion, if the Forest Preserve or DOT were balking at the parking question because they had concerns about the cost, it sounds like there's a real public safety concern here. And if the board is going to be considering contributing anything, maybe it's contingent upon the Forest Preserve officially accepting an easement over that parking area that would allow them to use it, no charge, but it would help address the public safety issue that you're bringing up.
Hey, Mike, I know you raised your hand. If I could just go to the rest of the board first before I get comment from you, but I'll come back to you.
So before you move on, I would agree to it only if Country Club Estates funds 50 of it.
Okay, so you would agree to it if they paid for
I
half?
would.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. And then Ian,
I would agree with Rita and Bobby that I think it's an intriguing idea on the partnership and the leverage of we pay 15 Country Club. So I would say let's explore with Country Club and then spread it out over 2 years. I do hear, I think Chris has got a good point. I would be, and I talked to you earlier about we should have some better plans on pathways. That's a different use of money, but it kind of brings it up, that idea.
Well, pathways is just one though. I mean, my homeowners association will come in with our proposal too, and it's going to be buckthorn removal, or it's going to be redo the bridge on Diamond Lake Road, or I mean, I think you open up a Pandora's box. It's just endless. I think it's endless, and everybody will line up with their hands out looking for cash. And if you're going to survey somebody, survey all the residents, survey everybody north of 22, and see if they want to put the money into forest preserve land down south. I think going to Country Club or the South is a no-brainer survey. I mean, if you think about Country Club contributing 50 or 100 bucks a house, it's nothing, you know, compared to the village dropping 15 grand in a part of the, you know, on land that isn't ours. I just don't understand why this is being contemplated.
Chris, thank you.
What do you do with the $50 or $100?
I'm sorry?
What's the purpose of them paying the $50 or $100?
Well, that would be their contribution.
No, that's our, I think Rita's talking about our annual dues.
Right. What do they do with that money?
Well, we, you know,
Pay
upkeep
legal
the
fees and insurance.
yeah, and that stuff. But, you know, we maintain, you know, public areas within Country Club Estates. You know, we maintain the monuments and all the landscaping around there. We normally have a yearly party for our residents. Well, a social get together, call it what you want. COVID's prevented that, which is why we are in a situation where we could even contemplate spending this money right now.
But it's nothing, Chuck. It's minuscule money for 200 some homes. It's minuscule money. You just take a
I just want to
selection
get to Jenny really quick because
Yeah.
she hasn't had a chance to comment.
I'm sorry.
No, I think we're getting off track on this, but I 100% agree with Chris Borowski. I feel like I'm actually really astonished that we're even talking about this because it isn't our land. We didn't do the work. I would say that given some opportunity and some more funding by the Lake County Forest Preserve, that eventually they are going to be making that a bigger priority. They were kind of moving east to west in their beautification. I spend time, I bike through that preserve. I don't find it extraordinarily offensive. It is quite far from Lake Cook Road. Yes, it is flat and low, but I think once they get prairie in there, and I think that the problem's going to disappear. And I really am a little stunned that we're considering putting $15,000 into this when we have so many other all village projects that would benefit the village. So.
All right, thank you. So, and I know, Mike, I'll come back to you because I know you have your hand raised, right? But if I got this right, you've got 2 definite no's, and 4 that are, it seems like you're supportive of it. And that would be the informal straw poll. Rita, I think, with some kind of a vote, a polling of our residents. Bobby was supportive of it if they paid half, and you were supportive of it. And Chuck, I'm assuming, I didn't ask you, that you're supportive of it since you've proposed it to the CCE board. Do I have that correct?
I'd like to poll I was trying to propose polling everybody.
Okay.
Because we are spending their money, and it's not just affecting Country Club Estates. I think Chris and Jenny make compelling arguments also, but I think it's valuable to understand it's not just Country Club using.
Okay.
We're paying.
So, yeah.
Quite honestly, I'm in a very awkward position being on both boards. I wouldn't even agree to discuss this if Country Club Estates isn't willing to pay half. Now, keep in mind, we haven't reached the point where we're getting our checkbook out either. For all I know, half of our residents are going to be against it, and it'll get shelved right there. So I see everybody's positions. I absolutely respect Jenny and Chris's positions on this. I take no offense to it, but I also see an opportunity that may not come our way again. And I'm not so sure I agree with Jenny's statement that they'll get around to planting trees over there. It's a wetland. They don't really need to do much with it at all.
So I guess I think you have a little bit of direction. It sounds like it's not a no, right? So I think you can probably poll your residents, but I think as a board do want to poll using the survey tool we have and writing a question that we can send out to the residents. It's just, what is that, right? We probably have to decide on that. And I don't know what that is.
I agree. This would be a good inaugural survey, right? You could just get out there. It's not a big one. It's just a quick, straightforward question. And we'll see how our new survey tool works. And I'm not against any of this. I'm going to tell our board to proceed with going forward to get Country Club Estates residents' input, and we'll see how it unfolds.
Okay. And I know, Mike, I know I'm going to come to you, but Bobby, I think you have a comment, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to get clear. We're going to survey the entire village as to whether we should spend 15,000 matching funds with Country Club Estates. Is that correct?
Well, it's my understanding, but it's how you write that up, right?
Okay, no, that's my first question.
Right.
Then what kind of criteria will we use in the future for this kind of survey? In other words, we're taking us from being a representative form of government where you're elected, you make decisions. And now we're going to become a democracy, and we're going to be asking the community each time we want to spend money. So what's the criteria going to be, and how will we classify what requires a survey question and answer or doesn't require a survey and answer? We need to have some kind of rules about how we're going to use this in this form of government.
Bobby, from my perspective, I don't think we should ever use a survey as the final vote. I see it as informational, but I think you raised an important discussion point. To me, it's not the survey prevails. I think it's information we use as elected officials.
Oh, I don't think you ever ask a question that you don't want an answer. If I ask you a question and you give me an answer and then I don't use it, hey, that's insulting. So
I was going to say I would actually ask two questions. The first one would be, do you use Buffalo Creek Reserve?
Do what?
Do you use the forest preserve?
Do you use it?
Do I use it? Why is that relevant?
That would be the first survey question.
Why?
Because I think it would be valuable to understand, do people even, are they answering because they actually use it or not?
Maybe they use herons.
Right.
So it's irrelevant. You're asking about money. You're not asking about use. You're asking about money.
I think it might be an idea to frame it in such a manner that monologue is not as good as dialogue sometimes. And just because I ask for your opinion means I would like to know what the residents think, number one. And number two, it doesn't mean that, oh, okay, well, 51% said this, 49 said that, so this is what we'll do. It's asking for input, period.
You're missing my point. My point is not, do you ask this or do you ask that? I'm asking for a criteria for which you're going to use this method of polling the residents. If this reaches that that level where it's important to know the feelings of the village, what other things are important enough to be asked?
For myself, I'd like to hear from the residents as much as possible. I'd like to know what they think about this. I'd like to know how they feel about the bridge. I'd like
and if there are 8,500 people here, what makes a consensus? Is it 4,400? Is it 2,200? What this is?
It's informational. I see it as informational. I don't see it as a rubric. I would be interested in people's opinions, thoughts, ideas on a myriad of topics. And it's a way to tap that resource where we know we're only corresponding with our residents, not people who are posing as our residents, who, you know, may appreciate the fact that we've reached out to them and said, hey, you know, what.
And then I'm going to do something different than what they, but you're missing my point that
No, Bobby makes a very good point.
Of a slippery slope.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, if we polled the residents about what we should have done with the bridge,
yes,
that bridge would not have a cover.
Yes, and it would be 2 lanes.
It'd probably be a 2-lane, federally subsidized, non-covered bridge. And boy, have I heard about that from people over the last couple of weeks, and I'm guessing everyone on this board has as well.
I've heard nothing.
You're a lucky man.
But you're,
I've heard people from out of state.
No, lots of it.
But Chuck, your point is right on target.
Right, and that's the point you were making.
Yes. Yes.
So that is a slippery slope, but I do like to get the temperature of the community. Just at what point?
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say I very much, and I hate to interrupt you, Chris, because you always say things that are very sage. I do think that encouraging dialogue more and listening more is valuable. I really do. And maybe the point you're making, Bobby, is maybe any questions we should ask should not necessarily be about how we spend money, and they're informational in a different way. And I would want to think through that, not just on the spur of the moment right now, but I think maybe that's something to be more circumspect about. Sorry, Chris.
That's my point. That's my point. We haven't thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
Who earlier in the meeting wanted to make certain that people knew what we were doing as far as the flooding? I was, because their communication going both ways is so important. But so I'm all for listening, but have a criteria, have a program, have an understanding of what you're going to do with it. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and bringing up the drainage tile, the village spent somewhere around $5,000 to do that study. I could guarantee, well, I can't guarantee anything, but I have a feeling if we polled 8,500 people, if the village should have spent that money on that drainage tile study, which, you know, benefited a subdivision, the answer probably would have been, no, don't spend the money.
Either that or where's mine?
This is very difficult subjects. You know, how do we
That's
spend
why
the
I
money?
bring up
And-
being a representative government and not a democracy.
Yep. And it's a great point.
All right. So I know, Mike, you had a comment, but I guess can we bring this to some kind of conclusion? I think there's an openness to do this. The survey part is not going to be decided tonight. I don't think we should try to come up with that. I think maybe we should save that, let it percolate a little bit. But I'm hearing enough buy-in, 2 very, very for sure no's, but 4 that are somewhat supportive. I live in an HOA that pays for everything, so Chris and Jenny, I respect your opinion. But on this one, I would go along with supporting paying something to help out. I'm sure that there'll be other things throughout the village that will be asked to help other subdivisions, and maybe someday mine will be in that same boat. I don't know, and I would hope so. So that's how I would look at it. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to go forward with getting feedback from our residents, because quite honestly, if the majority of our residents are adamantly opposed to this, it's a moot point.
Right.
I'm certainly not going to come to this board and argue in favor of the village spending money if our homeowners don't want to at least kick in half.
We already turned down the 30.
Yep.
Right. Absolutely.
Can I stop it here? And I don't know what thought-provoking comment former trustee Sarletto has.
No, I just had one. That we were exploring, there was going to be an exploration of Adopt a Highway program of some sort, doing the fundraising, that sort of thing, with Menards and that sort of thing. I'm not sure where that ever went. I think I was still on the board when we talked about that idea. I'm just curious where that went. But I will tell you, this has been a great discussion, because this is the kind of stuff the board needs to be talking about, the policy stuff, where you split the hairs on where money goes, the priorities and that sort of thing. I could tell you there's a number of times the economic incentive program was an example of the board spending residents' money. I'm not sure any resident knew that program came, went, still is in place, or anything else. So to Bobby's point, that's what you get paid the big bucks to do, is to make those kinds of decisions, right? But it just seems to me all kind of fundraising. I don't know where the Adopt a Highway went, but I could definitely see, Menards is having a banner year there. We're hearing, right? A banner year this year.
Mm-hmm.
It may be something very viable, and bolt that up with the Scouts. Suddenly you have maybe half of it already paid for. Don't know.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate those thoughts. So I'm going to, everyone okay, I'm going to stop the conversation here if I can. Chuck, you've got some direction, and let us know.
I will certainly get back to you guys.
And I know there might be a few other things. Just one thing I want to comment on so I don't forget. There's an open house tomorrow on Cuba Road. I responded yes. I don't believe anyone else did. We didn't notice the meeting, so I will be there. It's going to be held in the tent by the brewery. And so we'll see how that goes. Of course, the weather was very, very nice. Now, tomorrow it doesn't look very nice, but it'll be under a tent. We'll all be wearing masks. And is there anyone else that would like to go? I'm assuming Rita wants to go, but I don't know. We didn't notice it. David sent an email out over the weekend. So
5:30, right?
Yeah, 5:30. Only two
Okay.
people, only two of the elected officials can go. And I will be there for sure. I responded.
I may be out of town, so I won't know until later tomorrow.
Is there anyone else that can go then? And if you're not,
I'll be
able to?
there.
Well, you
I'm out of town, Bill. I can't make
out of
it.
town? Okay.
I could go if you want another rep.
Okay. Well, Rita, will you let us know?
Yes.
I know Bobby was definitely a no. So, okay. Are you good with that, Chuck? You don't, or Jenny, or are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's good. I'm busy. So.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, then the next item on the agenda is the covered bridge protection. I know
Oh,
that,
please, that name, that sounds like a 1930s tea party.
Yes, yes.
Doesn't it? Can't you
It makes
just
me
imagine that we're drinking tea and we're a league?
so I know that Aaron is here and Angie
Glad
might
you're
be here.
focused on what's important, Bobby.
Name. The mission different, the name.
Dave, did Jesse get the stuff ready? Is Jesse here?
No, I've not received anything, and he said he would participate if we wanted him in this meeting. I'm sure that I can text him and bring him in, but I don't have a proposal to share with you prior to the conversation.
Well, I think if we don't have a proposal, then there's no point to having him join us.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think it would be difficult to have the conversation without having a chance to look at it beforehand.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know if I can open it up to Aaron or Angie. I think Aaron, I heard you. If there's anything you wanted to add, we did get the note from Angie. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, so we're meeting again tomorrow. Most of the meeting last week was just devoted to letting people kind of air their thoughts, listen to what everybody else had to say. And so hopefully out of tomorrow's meeting, we'll have something more quantified in terms of pros and cons and options.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the update there. Any other comments on that?
You guys should go to 11foot8.com.
There you go.
You want to watch some really fun stuff?
10'8", I think it is.
I think it's 11.8.
Oh,
Whatever.
bridge impacts.
Yeah, I forget where it is in the country, but it became known as the can opener.
Yeah.
And
There's a couple
you
of
want to
those.
see
In one of the Carolinas.
box trucks, like literally having the entire top shirt off.
Yeah.
Mostly rental trucks, by the way.
Yeah, the last incident was a U-Haul, so yeah.
Yeah.
Or last one I know about, I should say.
Well, I know, Mike, you've got your hand raised again. We'll come back to, we have public comment period here if we can, but are there any other trustee reports? Anyone else want to report on anything?
Just for the trustees, my computer died or crashed on me a few months back. It took me many months to get it back up and running. I spent this weekend getting back on track with our monthly permit fees and expenses. So Dave, I believe, put that into our packet. And I just basically took it from May through now. Somewhat surprising to me is we are not doing too bad. Had a lot of permits. Maybe it's COVID, everyone's home doing home projects, but we're not doing so bad.
I liked the report that had the permit fees and the expenses, or the
Mhm.
overhead.
Mhm.
And it just really paints a very clear picture.
Yep. So I tend to do that every month and get back on track. I was doing it for a while. The computer getting wiped clean because it crashed set me back quite a ways, but I apologize. I'm back on track.
Bill, I've got a couple Swalco things.
Yeah, please.
Meeting was held last week. Swalco's partnering with a startup company to kind of kick off an initiative of a recycle environment where companies can list furniture and excess materials on their website, and then other companies who are looking for desks and chairs or office equipment can basically connect up with the folks who have the excess. So the initiative is trying to keep more and more out of the landfill by the ability to have more of a business to business eBay, if you will, specifically focused on kind of the office equipment and office space. So that was kind of an interesting initiative that just started up. I think there'll be a link on the Swalco website promoting the company called, I can't remember, I can't pronounce it. It's kind of a funny name, but it's basically like Reapply or Reapple or something like that, but kind of interesting. A couple other quick things. Garbage waste continues to be very, very low in the office areas, but the residential garbage volume has increased significantly during COVID, on the order of 21% increase in garbage pickup in residential. And the reason that's significant is because if you're picking up a dumpster at an office building, it's one trip. If you're picking up 21% more volume up and down the street, that garbage truck has to run back and forth to the transfer station significantly more than it planned on, which increases costs and labor. And the haulers are already talking about the added costs that they're experiencing because of that. On the positive side, recycling is also significantly up. And the speculation is that people staying at home actually have the time to sort through and clean their containers and put them in the right bin and drag them down to the street, much more so than they did in the past. Swalco did receive and win a USDA grant for a 2-year project for education. And this is where Swalco will be targeting some public service and education programs within certain schools. Swalco won the grant from USDA, was one of over 400 applicants, and there was only like 2 grants awarded. So it was pretty impressive, and Swalco was very happy that they were able to achieve that grant. And it's all about education in the school. So I think it's a really, really good thing. Thank you.
Hey, do you know, Chris, has our waste gone up in Long Grove, or?
You know, I didn't see the numbers for us, but I think it's across the county. So yeah, I think our waste is up, and I know our recycling is up because there's 1 million Amazon boxes sitting at everybody's driveway nowadays.
I know mine personally is not, but anyways, but there you go.
You know, I'll look at the numbers, Bill, and I'll send them if I get them. I didn't see updated specific Long Grove numbers. We'll take a look at it.
And did you have
I
something?
had a question. I had a question about the textile recycling. A, how's it going? And B, how did they do the criteria? Because one of my COVID projects was cutting up all the t-shirts to make a t-shirt quilt. And I was so excited. I thought all the sleeves will get but they won't take just the sleeves, even though they would be fabulous, I think, relative to other stuff.
Well, who's they? Who's they? You know, actually, I haven't talked to
Swalco
Swalco.
website.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. I saw your email, but I didn't realize that Swalco website was making that recommendation.
They won't take parts, but they'll take a torn t-shirt, but they won't take just a sleeve.
Okay, no idea.
Do they talk about how that textile recycling is being received?
You know, not in that much detail, no. I mean, basically, my understanding was what goes in the bin gets taken away by the recycler, and they sort it into piles, and the piles are reusable materials that get repurposed. And then the other pile is stuff that simply goes into the recycle pile that gets shredded up for insulation or, you know, whatever the heck they use it for. So I'm really surprised actually that sleeves would not be part of that. But anyway, let me check into it. I'm kind of waiting for us to decide on what to do to Semple before I kind of reach out to Swalco coordinator on the textile bins for us. It'd be good to know where we want to put those.
Fair question.
Chris, when we talked contract, we had talked about a sampling of recycled product, recycling within various homes, and that they would check and see if you were recycling correctly, and if not, you got a demerit or something. Did that ever get enacted? Did they do that? Or did we get so bogged down with COVID that it got lost?
You're talking about it like the stickering of bins in case things are not right.
Right.
You know, I'm not sure, Bobby. I'm going to ask Dave if he knows, because I don't know how it ended up at the very end of the contract. So I'm not sure.
I'll have to take a look at the contract also, Chris. I don't remember if that ended up in or out.
Yeah, I don't know if it ended up where it ended up either.
Any other questions for Chris? If not, any other trustee reports?
I just have one thing, and that is, if you have ideas on future articles for the newsletter, please kind of send them to me. We've tried to be creative and tackle different things, but we're kind of running out of ideas. So if you've got something, let me know.
I think the recycling thing would be an interesting, you know, to the point, it's going up, but also we're recycling better. And so a little bit of catching people doing something we want them to do.
Okay. If Chris or Dave could get me some numbers,
yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
All right, thank you. All right, no more reports. I want to do one more thing and we'll open it up for public comment, and that is approval of the board meeting minutes from the August 25th meeting. Does anyone, those are the only ones I believe we have to approve tonight. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
So
Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by?
Is this the one that Vic amended?
No, that was the executive session minutes.
Oh, okay, okay.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by? I can't second it, so.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by trustee Nora. Roll call, please. Amy?
All right. Trustee Borowski.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Okay. Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
You're muted.
Sorry. Aye.
Excellent. And trustee Micho.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Bill, I'm looking at Dave's report, and it's showing meeting minutes for June 2nd and the 23rd.
I don't believe we have those, Dave. All we have is the ones from the 25th.
Okay.
Did we
Maybe
receive
I
those?
read some other minutes. Maybe not.
Dave, Amy, help me out here, because the only ones I have are
Yes,
is these.
I did send those. You do have those, Dave.
I thought I'd read them somewhere.
Are they up there in the Google Drive, Dave?
I'm looking right now. Okay.
No, they're not.
No.
Yeah, I don't see them.
All right, they will make sure that you guys got them for next time.
All right, thank you. Opening it up for public comment. Mike, you've had your hand raised for a long time. Do you have something?
No, I can't lower my hand. Only you can.
Oh, is that what it is?
I have no other
I
comments.
lowered your hand, so it's been bugging me.
Yeah, there's no way for me to lower my hand there, Bill. It's all up to you.
You've been looking kind of funny the whole time, and I was trying to figure it
Well,
out.
I was figuring there was some kind of functionality where maybe I could override, but no.
All right,
Sorry.
I just lowered your hand. Darn it, I would have
Thank
done
you.
that a long
Don't
time
worry.
ago, maybe many times. All right. Anybody else have any comment?
Isn't this a record breaker in terms of speed of a meeting? 9:15, isn't that early?
Almost.
Yeah, quick, let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up.
So any other?
Congratulations.
If there's no more public comment, I want to move us into executive session. So I'm going to one more time ask, any other public comment? If not, then love to somebody make a roll call motion to go in executive session, discuss executive session meeting minutes, threatened litigation and enforcement matters, investment and personal matters.
So moved.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly,
Second.
seconded by trustee Michaud. Roll call.
All right, trustee Michaud,
Aye.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
Aye.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Aye.
and trustee Borowski.
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. I'm going to now do my best to open up the breakout rooms, and thank
Good
you
luck,
all.
everybody. Nice job.
Have
Thanks,
a good
Mike.
night,
Have a good
Mike.
night.
Thanks, Mike.
See you
Have a
next
good
time.
night.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thanks everyone
Mike.
for attending. Let's see, if I wait 1 second. So let's see. I just want to make sure I don't add more. Let's see. Who is Craig LaPlante? I want to remove. Okay, you dropped off. Okay, so now I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. I believe I'm good. Jeff, you're going to be here as well. All right.
Hey, can anyone hear Bill?
I can't.
I
Hey, Bill?
cannot either.
Now I can.
Bill?
Are you talking to us?
Perhaps if we all waved.
Yeah. We got it.
I'd like to move we adjourn.
No, no.
No, no.
No, Rita, host now.
Where did Bill
We have
go?
to do the minutes.
Oh, Bill's gone.
Oh, jeez.
Rita, you're the host now.
I'd like to make a
You're
motion to
the
pass.
you're the senior, Ann. Take over.
Oh, I think technology, it said Rita's the host.
That's what I read.
Right.
Where do you
You're
see
the
that?
boss.
Where do you, well, good night.
No, no.
Okay, see ya. No.
I make a motion to approve all minutes.
Executive session minute.
Second.
All opposed.
Okay.
All opposed. All opposed.
No, we got.
Needs
it's
to be roll call.
'cause of
Has to
COVID.
be roll call.
Yep. Trustee Borowski.
Yes.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Yes, but abstain on the July 28th.
July 28th. You got it. Abstain. Okay. Trustee Nora.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor.
Aye.
And Trustee Michaud.
Hi.
All right.
Longrove's now the host. Bill's back.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Trustee Borowski was the first on that, and was that you, Trustee Kritzmeyer?
Was me.
Second. Or it could be Rita.
It was,
We all want to leave.
I don't care.
We can't hear you,
Bill,
Bill.
you're muted. There you go.
You were all in the meeting
There
and
you
I got kicked off. Is that what happened?
Yep.
We guess. We don't know. We approved all the minutes though while you were.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
And we already moved and seconded adjournment.
Okay,
yeah,
well then
who-
the meeting's
second,
adjourned if
who
you
we
did it all,
going-
so thank you.
It was
Well,
Wait,
don't we have to
wait,
do a
wait.
roll call
it
on
was
that too?
Rita.
Yep, okay. And it was, thank you, Rita was the second on that. All right, and Trustee Michaud.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
Trustee Borowski.
Aye.
Excellent. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Meeting adjourned.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.